Welcome back to the Git Good Scrub podcast. It's your boy, Cool Guy Fonz, and as always, joined by our very own Cyrax, Marc-TheCyborg.
Cyrax. Yes, of Mortal Kombat 3 fame. And Mortal Kombat 9. He's in 9 as well.
And most importantly, Annihilation.
Yeah, as our friend Jono would say, the best video game film ever made. I would always ask him why, because I think Mortal Kombat Annihilation is terrible, and he would always just say, because it has every character in it. And I was just like, this is literally, you're just ticking the box of like, is there the like fan service? Okay, Shiva's in there. All right, cool. There's Sindel. It's the mom from the OC, but sure. I don't know who else we got. Okay, Sub-Zero's brother with the eye scar. All right, yeah. Now Sonya's back. Okay. We got Jax Raiden, but he's a different guy. Like Johnny Cage is in it. He dies right away, but he's in it.
They switch out Raiden.
Yeah.
I forget if they switched out Sonya Blade as well.
I think she might be the same actress. Her and Liu Kang, I think, returned. It was, Johnny Cage was in it. He just gets killed instantly, like immediately, even though he's pretty much the protagonist. Him and Liu Kang are kind of the two protagonists of the first movie, and he's just instantly killed off in Mortal Kombat Annihilation, probably because the actor just wanted more money. He's like, no, I'm Johnny Cage. And they're like, look, we got 40 characters. We don't need Johnny Cage. There will be people in our audience who will be like, this movie is good just because we have so many characters.
Oh my god. As always.
Still love you, Jono, but that's a ridiculous thing to expect as far as quality goes in a film.
As always, we're bringing you the best and latest info on the gaming news. And first up, we have some trailers coming out of the DC Fandome. And let's start with Gotham Knights, developed by Warner Brothers Games Montreal. So it's got a special place in my lineup already. You'll be able to play with 4 characters: Nightwing, Robin, Batgirl, and Red Hood. And it's set in the Court of Owls lore, which is a really good graphic novel if you've never read it, from the New 52. We're releasing on Xbox, PlayStation, and PC sometime next year, probably, because we'll talk about delays later. But what'd you think of it?
I think it looks all right. I guess, this is an argument from adaptation, I guess I'm going to make, but seeing the Court of the Owls story without Batman is strange. Like, it doesn't seem like it's actually, it doesn't seem like it's a very good story to adapt as just a Bat family thing, unless the premise was this is happening and Batman's dealing with something too, but this game is focused on like the Bat family's perspective. Because there was the second graphic novel in the Court of the Owls arc was Night of Owls, and that was basically a crossover event where every single Bat family character's book was about the things that were going down that night, where the Court of the Owls, which is this like secret society who has these super soldiers called the Talons, is just attacking all the members of the Bat family. But in this, not in this trailer, but in the previous trailer, they show that in this story, Batman is dead, or presumed dead, and so it's like, this is the Court of the Owls story, which is very much based on the aristocracy of Gotham and how they related to the Waynes and why the Owls hate the Waynes as much as they do, and why they're kind of, the way it's written, it's kind of like they've always been Batman's arch nemesis, even though he didn't even know they existed. They were just like this shadowy organization. So it is cool. I think it's probably the best story in the New 52, probably between that or Death in the Family. Death in the Family was the Jason Todd one. Death of the Family, though, was the Joker one, where he's got the face, like his face is kind of stretched over himself, like
the cutout face, like the leather face of Joker.
Yeah. The Leatherface Joker was the Death of the Family one, and that's where you think he's going to kill Alfred, but spoiler alert, it doesn't go down quite like that.
It's all the Court of Owls also has like very strong ties to the Grayson family as well, right? So
that's
maybe
true.
They'll play on that a little bit more, and like you said, like it could just be what they're doing during what Batman is presumed dead.
Yeah, and if Batman kind of comes back at the end, because I think it would be really interesting if they then had a Batman DLC,
exactly,
where you play that same story just through Batman's perspective, because you would think that the Bat family would be the DLC characters, but I think it would be kind of interesting to flip that around. And then if the game doesn't do very well at launch, I think if you announce the Batman DLC, you could probably see a big spike in sales. I'm still kind of worried about the writing in it because of Mitch Dyer of Star Wars Battlefront 2 and Star Wars Squadrons campaign writing fame. I don't think he's very good, so the second he announced that he was working on that game, I'm just like, oh no. Please just be a guy who writes side quests or something. Or maybe Batman is his thing and he knows more about Batman than he does about Star Wars and can do something well. But I think that the weirdest thing about the trailer that I found, you only will really pick up on if you watch both this trailer and the Suicide Squad trailer. And that's because the Penguin in the Gotham Knights trailer is really, really serious and earnest, and he seems like he's powerful, and he's the one that's delivering these things about the Court of Owls and like saying they've always been in charge of everything, and it's supposed to be, like very, very serious. And then you see him at the kind of bumper at the end of the Suicide Squad trailer where it seems like Penguin was part of the Suicide Squad and he has the like chip inside his neck. And all of the Suicide Squad members just keep on saying, yeah, Penguin's running away, so that Amanda Waller keeps shocking him. And then it ends with King Shark being like, blow up his head. And like, I thought that was pretty funny. But at the same time, it's like, you guys maybe shouldn't have used Penguin for that if you were going to have Penguin be a prominent part of your serious Batman universe game that's coming out at around the same time. Like, I thought that was a bit of a weird thing, because it's like, is Penguin supposed to be like respectful and serious, or is he the butt of the joke? And if it's one and then the other at totally different times, I think that would be a lot different than if it was like these two trailers were released on the same day.
Yeah.
And you have one where Penguin's supposed to be a respectful character and one where like he's got King Shark being like, blow him up.
Well, like, since you mentioned it, we also got the trailer for the Suicide Squad Kills the Justice League.
Yeah.
But it's developed by Rocksteady instead of Warner Brothers Games Montreal. So don't know if I'm going to play it. Maybe I'll check it out.
Well, Rocksteady was like the original Arkham series. Like that,
Yeah,
like they're the ones who did Asylum, City, and Arkham Knight. WB Montreal's only other game was Arkham Origins.
Yeah.
Which, funny enough, and in all fairness to WB Montreal, is maybe a bit of a hot take, but that's my favorite Arkham game. I sort of think it has the best story, and I think that I think that the boss fights in Arkham Origins are actually quite a bit better than they are in most of the rest of the series. And I think Asylum's probably still the tightest game, and a lot of people love City. I thought City was really good as well, but Origins is kind of my personal favorite.
Okay. Well, I stopped after City. I like the open world concept of it, but it was really hard to get all those Riddler clues, so I gave up on that.
Yeah, that's
this one's only coming to PS5, Xbox Series X, and PC, where you're going to play as Harley Quinn, Deadshot, Captain Boomerang, and King Shark. You mentioned before, like off screen, that there's no gameplay of this game yet.
Yeah.
So we actually have no idea how it's going to play. How is it going to be different than
Gotham Knights?
Yeah.
So Gotham Knights is apparently also multiplayer, but it's going to be 2 players max. And from the gameplay that they have shown of Gotham Knights, in all fairness to Gotham Knights, they have shown gameplay of it. It seems like it's an Arkham game. It's an Arkham game that's not called Arkham. It's called Gotham Knights, and it plays like an Arkham game, but you can play with 2 people. Apparently, they said that the reason it was not going to be 4-player is because 4-player throws off the balance of the Arkham gameplay too much and makes it so that especially things like stealth are really chaotic, because you've got 4 Bat family members zipping around, and it would be kind of ridiculous if like the villains are not seeing anybody.
Yeah.
Which makes a bit of sense to me. Even 2 might be a little weird. I think stealth gameplay while trying to play with a second player could be a bit strange, because it's very much trial and error in a lot of ways, though the Arkham games were always pretty good about the fact that once you get spotted, you can usually just jump down and be Batman, right?
Yeah.
But Suicide Squad, we don't really know how it's going to play exactly, just we know that it's going to be 4 players, so you're going to be able to play as presumably those 4 characters, because it seems like it's pretty tightly scripted as far as the story goes, so I don't think that it's going to be a kind of situation where you can just select different members of the Suicide Squad. Like they might, I don't know, have,
release DLC afterwards.
Yeah, like a Bloodshot DLC or Polka Dot Man or something. Or the new better Suicide Squad characters. But no, the Weasel is the best one, let's face it, because I wish Harley was nearby. Harley's not here, but she basically looks like Weasel.
Speaking of the DC fandom, and especially Joker, there's also a third Joker that was shown, and that was the Joker in the Batman trailer, the actual movie trailer.
Wait, the Joker's in that?
Oh, sorry, Penguin.
The Penguin, yeah. That's Colin Farrell?
Of course, yeah, I do know that's Colin Farrell.
Like that makeup is spectacular because Colin Farrell is a pretty good looking guy, and that Penguin was not, and you believed it too. It didn't look like Colin Farrell in ugly fat guy makeup. It looked like just a different dude.
Yo, he looks like a better fat guy than Danny DeVito did in Batman Returns.
Yeah, he looks more real than Danny DeVito.
Yeah, so
that's amazing. But yeah, I thought the Batman looked pretty good too. It maybe seemed a bit like it was just, it looks like another Batman movie. I think that it might be getting to the point that they're firing these off so fast that I don't know that I'm as excited for the Batman as I was after its first trailer. Because I think that it seems like it's going to be a little bit less unique than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
It might just be the way the trailer was edited and stuff, but it seemed to me kind of like Batman Begins, but Catwoman's in it, and it's Robert Pattinson instead of Christian Bale. But
yeah,
I don't know. I guess
it's very Batman Begins and Dark Knight like together, basically.
Yeah.
With like,
but I mean, I think the cast is really good.
overtones.
Yeah, and I think the cast is very good, and I like Matt Reeves, the director, a lot. I'm a big fan of his work.
What's his like obsession with just filming in the rain all the time? Like,
oh yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, Cloverfield had a lot of like kind of dark. I don't know if it was a lot of rain, but there was a lot of stuff in like the subway.
Yeah,
and lots of rain in the Planet of the Apes series. The second two were him, and you're right, there was a lot of rainy shots in those ones too.
But speaking of other movie trailer news, we got a new trailer for the Resident Evil movie released released November 24th, but it's already released in Germany.
The movie?
Yeah.
Oh, really? That's strange. I haven't seen any reviews for it yet. But I guess that would make a bit of sense because Constantin Films is German. I remember that because that was news that I was aware of when the original Resident Evil movie had been announced, which was apparently going to be directed by George Romero, who directed Night of the Living Dead and Dawn of the Dead. And then he eventually left the project, and Paul W.S. Anderson hopped on and hired Mila Jovovich, married her, and then made 80 of those films. I want to say my biggest complaint about this trailer, the song choice. What were they thinking?
Yeah.
Have none of them ever seen the He-Man meme? Like the hey, yeah. That's all I could think of. I was like, do you guys really thought this was a good song to pick for a Resident Evil movie trailer? What is scary, frightening, or intense about that song? Because, I mean, nothing is the answer, like, objectively, I think. I don't know if an argument can even be made that it's anything other than a silly-sounding song.
I'm definitely going to watch this movie because I'm a big fan of the Resident Evil franchise, but I don't understand, like, this concept of being really true to the source material where, like, shots are clearly, like, ripped from the games.
Like the zombie turning around and the liquor and stuff.
But then do it like totally different than it happened in the game. Like it looks like Claire's at the mansion, and I'm like, how does that make sense?
For whatever reason, it seems like they're trying to cram Resident Evil 1 and Resident Evil 2 into one film, which means that it's either got to be blisteringly fast paced, or in order to even cover all the material, it might be 4 hours long, which I don't think is going to happen. Or it's just not going to be a very good movie. Yeah. The other thing that's kind of strange too, as much as I tend to get not too caught up on like ethnicity swapping for characters. But for Leon in particular, the guy's got like a mustache and a little like soul patch thing. And I was like, I get like you probably this guy. I don't know the actor's name off the top of my head at least, but he seems like he's an Indian guy, or like Pakistani or something like that. Like, South Asian descent. And it's like they didn't even try to make him look like a Indian version of Leon even. Like, because I mean, if he had just like the same haircut and he was clean shaven and the dude was an amazing actor, I don't think anyone would have cared really. But it seems like they kind of went out of his way to be like, yeah, I'm not shaving for this, just so you know. This is staying.
Just so we're clear, his name is Avan Georgia, and he's actually from Vancouver.
Well, I mean, okay.
I know, like, but it doesn't. I'm looking for his background, but it doesn't say it. But I thought
both you and I
funny.
Are Canadian, but I think that it would be fair to say that if we were playing Jackie Chan in a biopic, they'd be like, "Why is an Italian guy playing Jackie Chan?" Like,
no, it doesn't.
But
say
I mean, that's kind of what I'm saying though. That it seems like a weird change. And then the girl whose name I'm kind of now forgetting as well, but I like her a lot. She was Jill. She was in Black Mirror, and she was in
John Kamen.
Yeah, and she was in Ant-Man and the Wasp as well. I think she's absolutely beautiful. Like she's got like really amazing eyes, and I think she's actually quite a good actress as well. She was in a show called The Killjoys that I actually liked quite a bit, and they just did not try to make her look like Jill. Yeah. Like she doesn't have like the short hair. She doesn't have the beret. It sort of just looks like she didn't really do much with her hair at all. She's got like kind of long curly hair that looks kind of unkempt. And I'm just like, why would they go so far as to like you were saying, recreate shots? There was one part too where Itchy Tasty is written on a window in blood. And I thought that was really cool. That's like a really deep cut of one of the journals from the original Resident Evil game. And it just seems like if you're going to be like, okay, the Mila Jovovich one wasn't really a direct adaptation. The fans want to see Resident Evil on the big screen. That's what we're going to do. And then you can see a producer being like, awesome, do it. And then another guy being like, wait, got to change some shit though.
Yeah.
It's like, man, like pick a lane. Either do a totally different story in the Resident Evil universe, and then that way it's beneficial for people who like the games to just watch the movie, because it's like, hey, you can get some different color and texture from the universe by seeing another story that actually fits into the canon, but totally different characters that you don't have to worry about casting correctly. Or no, this one is just going to be the story of the game on screen. Cast it and create it so that it seems like it's the story of the game on screen. Like I don't understand why it's so difficult for them to decide to do one or the other. They always seem like they're trying to do both. Because even the original Resident Evil movie, there are scenes where like she starts the film in what like looks like the Spencer Mansion and stuff, and so it's like is this supposed to be below the mansion, this whole thing? And like, so is this the same story, or is this a story where the stuff with Alice is going on, but also Chris and Jill are dealing with the Spencer Mansion stuff? And I don't know. It's just I still think that we don't get a lot of very good video game based stuff, and I don't think this is going to change things. No. It seems like animation's the only hope. Like Castlevania, 4 seasons, really good. It's over now. They're probably doing some spin-offs, but I'd be okay if they just stopped. I thought it ended very well. The
Witcher's been pretty good.
Kind of based on the book more so than the movie. Than the games though. It clearly Henry Cavill is playing Geralt from the games, but I don't think any other character is. Yeah, I think he's like the guy that's on set, be like, "You guys even play the game?" It's like, no, we've read the books, and he's like, "What?"
There's books.
Yeah, there's books.
Yo, man, he's had a bad rap, and I don't get why. Supposedly he's very difficult to deal with, but I can't see it.
He seems pretty chilled out in every interview I've ever seen of him,
and he seems like very like good for the source material that he chooses to do. Right, like he clearly knows Superman.
He seems to really care about the things that he's involved in.
And he would have been perfect for evil Superman. They just never allowed him to do it.
Well, we'll see. Yeah. Maybe the Snyderverse will at some time be restored.
Oh, did you see the trailer for Flash?
Yeah.
I didn't see anything I needed to see, though. So I was like, okay.
I didn't see any. Honestly, I think that the only thing that makes me want to see that movie at all is I know Michael Keaton is going to be in it as Batman.
So the problem with like if you're only gonna go see it to see Michael Keaton, like I'm curious to see what kind of role he has because Ben Affleck's in it too, right? So like if they're both just gonna show up for like a 2 to 5 minute cameo, that'll be like that was a waste.
Yeah.
But if they have like prominent roles, then we're talking something, right? So we'll have to see. We'll see what happens when the reviews come out.
Well, it's the fear that I have about Spider-Man Far From Home, No Way Home. If they're going through all the trouble to show Dr. Octopus and have the Green Goblin Pumpkin Bomb and the heavy rumors that we're going to see both Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield reprise their roles as Spider-Man, I'm kind of thinking like, so is MCU Spider-Man just done? Like, are we out of stories to tell with that Spider-Man that like, we have to be like, hey, guess what, everybody? We got Spider-Man cameos for those two other actors that some of you are too young to even know made Spider-Man movies, and the others were saying Andrew Garfield. Yeah, like pissed at them for even existing at all. So like, I don't know. It's I hope that all the movies we've talked about, including Resident Evil and Batman, the Batman, The Flash, and Spider-Man are all great. I have a feeling they're all going to be bad though. And maybe not the Batman. The Batman I think might actually be all right, but all the rest of them, I don't know. Wait and see.
Up next we got like some quick fire on games released this week. So we had a Back for Blood released on all platforms, developed by Turtle Rock and published by Warner Brothers. 4-player co-op first-person shooter in the likeness of Left 4 Dead. You played the beta. What'd you think?
Yeah, and I have the game too. I just haven't got around to playing it because that was one of the ways that you got into the beta. And I liked it. I thought it was definitely quite a bit of fun. It really kind of scratches that Left 4 Dead itch in a lot of ways, but at the same time, I've not been hearing fantastic things about the final product, that mostly in regards to it feeling very repetitive, sort of having a lot of weird always online aspects to it where like you can't really make any progress at all or like unlock anything, or including other playable characters you cannot unlock if you're playing offline. Now, I'm sympathetic to the I guess our counter argument to say like, yeah, but it's a co-op multiplayer game. Like, what are you doing playing it offline anyways? At the same time, I think that kind of sucks for anyone who is playing it offline or like
the original Left 4 Dead like was like couch co-op, right?
I mean, yeah, like I guess if you played it on Xbox, it could be, but realistically, it was meant to be played online. And Back 4 Blood, even in the beta, had a matchmaking feature. So I think even the players who are like, oh yeah, no, like I don't want to be playing with other people. I just want to play on my own. I've seen the AI in that game, like the friendly AI. You want to be playing with other people. You do not want that AI to be the people responsible for keeping you alive. Because I think especially if you go past the recruit difficulty, good luck. You're not passing a single level. Like I don't even think it is possible.
Without a fire team.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, even on veteran difficulty, even with a fire team, like they all better know what they're doing. So I don't know, like it's not a bad game though. It is, or at least from what I played in the beta, it is quite fun. I'll probably check it out maybe once I'm done all this Metroid stuff I've been working on, but we'll get to that at the end of the episode.
Yeah, we got to set up a stream because I have Game Pass now, so I'm
nice.
Yeah. So it got a 77 on Metacritic, nothing crazy, nothing out of the water. Another lukewarm game on Metacritic got a 75 was Far Cry 6, developed and published by Ubisoft. Basically Far Cry 3 and 5 again with Giancarlo Esposito or Gus Frings, depends on how you reference him. Like I've heard nothing different from the case.
Yeah, I know, and that's kind of what I like sort of said when the game was announced. There were people that I was talking to who were like, "Yeah, Far Cry 6, can't wait." I'm like, I don't know, it kind of looks like it's just going to be another Far Cry game. And there's certain people that I've talked to who are like, yeah, no, another Far Cry game. That's exactly what I want. And for those people, I mean, like fair play, like, okay,
yeah, if you love the story.
Yeah, and or not even necessarily the story, just like if you like open world tropical island sandbox, like crazy weapons and things like that go nuts. Far Cry is a pretty solid series for that. I think that it's also a good example of Ubisoft being very repetitive in their design. Like they just kind of have types of games that they make, and then they keep making those same games over and over again, to the point that Far Cry, Assassin's Creed, and it was certain Tom Clancy franchises, like I guess Division or Rainbow Six DLC, are almost like their NHL, Madden, like NBA 2K. Like it's just like, no, we crank these out every year, every couple years, and they're roughly the same. I actually liked Far Cry 5 quite a bit, but then they released that kind of like, I don't know, sequel to Far Cry 5 that they added all sorts of RPG mechanics and level gating, and those were all the elements of the Assassin's Creed games that they kind of shoehorned in the last few that I hated. So when I heard they were putting it into Far Cry, I was just like, okay, no, I'm not buying that, and I never did. For all I know, it was great. I think it was called Far Cry New Dawn, but I don't even really remember.
No, something.
No, you're probably thinking of Primal. That was the caveman one, and that was the kind of sequel-ish to Far Cry 4. But the Far Cry 5 one actually carried on the story. It just did it in a way that was apparently kind of weird.
As well, we had the Alan Wake remaster. Came out on all platforms, developed by Remedy, published by Epic Games. Control's DLC Awe set up the sequel for Alan Wake 2. So
AWE stands for Alan Wake Experience.
So, oh, cool. Yeah. Did not know that.
It's the Alan Wake games they're really solid. I would recommend getting the remaster because at worst it will play like the original, and I played the original about a year ago and I thought it was awesome. So I really recommend Alan Wake. It's a very good story. It seems like a horror game, but it's really a shooter more than anything else. Like it's kind of a thriller more so than like a survival horror. Like you're not counting your bullets, but at the same time you have to watch your aim and make sure your shots are hitting. But there's always enough ammo to kill everybody, and you can play it like an action game for the most part, but it's very tense and spooky. Not like a Resident Evil game though. Like it's much more fast paced.
Speed, I got 2 games for you. I don't know if you've heard of them. Like they were released this week, and they got pretty good reviews on Metacritic as well. One was Unmetal. Have you heard about this?
Oh, the like Metal Gear one?
It looks exactly like Metal Gear, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I've had that on my GOG wish list forever. I might buy that right now.
Published by Versus Evil, 2D stealth action game. You play as Jesse Fox, who's in prison in a military base, and he has to escape from. But very original Metal Gear, like Nintendo Metal Gear vibes.
Yeah.
But like with funny quips, and like he sounds pretty funny.
Yeah, it is out. Awesome. $23 and Undeluxe edition with a soundtrack.
That's hilarious.
Creator pack. Ghost Runner and Eldenborn, very good games, by the way.
Yeah, got an 80 on Metacritic, and anytime a new game comes out on GOG, you gotta support the cause.
Indeed.
And another game was called Inscription. Have you heard about this?
That I have not. No.
It's developed by Daniel Mullins Games. Basically, it's like a cabin in the woods style game, but like it's like a card game. You're in a cabin in the woods, and there's a mysterious creature in the room with you that you're starting to play a card game with. And as the game goes along, you notice that like the way things can kill you are how your cards are being played. It's pretty cool. Like it looks like it's pretty cool, but
what? Sorry, what was the name of that one again?
Inscription.
Okay, cool. I'll check it out.
Yeah, and then another big news before we get on to the main game of this podcast. We had Nintendo Switch Online and Expansion Plus Family Pack. So in September, Nintendo announced they were going to do their expansion pass for their Switch Online. Original Switch Online was $19.99 for individual and $34.99 for a family pack, which includes 8 different profiles. You got access to Nintendo and Super Nintendo games. I do have the list here, but I'll show them up. But it was announced that they're going to do an expansion pack for N64, Sega Genesis, and the new Animal Crossing's DLC. However, the price is $49.99 for the year and $80 for the family pack.
Yeah.
Now, I believe it's only 9 games.
I think it's 18. Although I guess the only ones that I'm seeing here are, the launch titles are Super Mario 64, Mario Kart 64, Star Fox 64, Yoshi's Story, Ocarina of Time, Win Back Covert Operations, which I kind of remember being the so N64 is trying to have a Metal Gear game, Mario Tennis, Dr. Mario 64, and Sin and Punishment, which I feel like I might have played, but I'm kind of not remembering what it looks like here. That name sounds familiar, though. Maybe I'm thinking of a different game. But
Yeah, I'll pull it up right here. I'm sharing the screen right now.
planned releases, Majora's Mask, Mario Golf, Pokemon Snap, F-Zero X, which previously was the only 60 FPS N64 game, Kirby 64, The Crystal Shards, Paper Mario, Banjo-Kazooie, and Custom Robo and Custom Robo V2, but only in Japan. So if you're a Custom Robo fan, I guess get a Japanese Nintendo Switch account. But the thing that I found most interesting about this, we'll start with the positives, at least on my end. There are not many, but this is actually a pretty significant one. Apparently, they said that they will be playable in 60 hertz, which is a refresh rate. But I think that might be indicating that these games are going to be playable in 60 frames a second, which would honestly be a gigantic leap up from where N64 games traditionally are. The average frame rate of an N64 game was 20 frames a second, not 24, which is the minimum frame rate for film for you to not see the black lines of the shutter, and not 30 frames a second, which is your standard modern console frame rate, which hopefully is kind of changing because now a lot of PS5 and Xbox Series games are 60 FPS, which I think should be the minimum frame rate for all video games. If I had my way, that's the world we'd be living in, gamers. But yeah, so I retweeted the post. It was from Nintendo, but I haven't been able to track down a lot of specific information on it. At the same time, I don't think that they would be able to post that unless it actually was true. Wait, no, that was me. But all Nintendo 64 games included with Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack can be played in 60 hertz in English language versions. Select games will also have the option to play all original European PAL version with language options. PAL is 50 frames a second, 50. It's why North America is actually better than Europe objectively, because they, like back in the day, they used to have 25 hertz TVs that were 25. It was 25 hertz, but it was interlace scan, so it would be flashing one set of lines, then the other set of lines. Ours was 30 hertz, so NTSC would be 30 sets of lines and 30 sets of other lines, but each one of those lines would flash in a second, which is why all like original NES games ran at 60 frames a second, because that was just the speed of TV at the time. It would be very rare for any game to be 30 FPS on original Nintendo, Sega Genesis, or Super Nintendo. It was not until like the PlayStation N64 era that it was like, we don't need them to be 60. And then I was, oh God, bad times. It was a dark time. But not before the Empire, whatever. I forget. Star Wars quotes, okay? But anyways, so yeah. But I mean, this to me that's interesting, and I honestly might get this for like a month to maybe fire my way through, fiddle around with it, play around with Legend of Zelda, Ocarina of Time, Mario 64, and Star Fox maybe at 30 FPS. I don't think any of the other ones I really care about all that much. Except for the Sin and Punishment one, which I got to remember what that is, because I really feel like I played that game, but my memory on it is so foggy. I might have just been one of those games that a friend of mine had, and I watched him play for a little while, but then totally forgot about it. But
well, the Sega Genesis game probably is better, like Castlevania Bloodlines.
The Sega Genesis games, they're all like on Steam. So like,
yeah, I guess.
It's kind of like when like the Genesis collection had been out forever. So I really don't think that it would be like if you're buying this for the Genesis games, you could have owned those Genesis games. Or people, this is one thing that people have been correcting me on lately. It's like, well, you don't own your games on Steam, you own a license. It's like, yeah, well, I don't have to pay for them annually. Okay, that's what I mean. That's what I mean by own. Okay, DRM free, like the GOG copies, you legit own those. Like you own them forever, the way you would own a physical copy. Only you can update it. But like even all the games I have on Steam, all the games I have on PlayStation Network, even all the games I have on Nintendo eShop, those I own in the sense that if I decide to stop subscribing to PlayStation Plus, I don't lose my copy of Metal Gear Solid 4 on PS3. Like it doesn't really work that way.
Yeah.
It's you can play it as long as you are, as long as you have functional hardware.
And it doesn't say anything about an offline mode.
No, because I don't think you'd be able to do it.
Mainly like if it's okay, like they say that, well, you don't own your game on Steam, but like I don't need to connect to the internet if I've downloaded the game on Steam, or at least not every 30 days, right?
I'd actually, I could probably check that out because I currently have the Switch online, mostly from playing like Mario Kart and stuff like that with the Geeks and Gamers people, which honestly I don't do all that often, so I could probably cancel it. But you know what? X-Ray Girl and I have a family pass, so I wouldn't because she still plays quite often. But the thing is, they do have the NES and Super NES games, so theoretically I could just bring my Switch outside of my house, and if I can still play Super Metroid, then obviously you can play it offline, and it's probably like a 30-day handshake, just kind of like it is for Steam offline mode. But the thing that sucks is you don't have the option to buy any of these games. Like the one thing about Game Pass that a lot of people are like, oh yeah, Game Pass is going to be the death of games. Like I like owning my games. It's like, yeah, but every game on Game Pass you can still just buy.
Yeah.
They're not stopping you from doing that. With Nintendo, if you're just like, well, I don't really want to pay $100 a year for a family pack. In Canada, it's $64.99 for one person, $99.99 for a family pack. So that's $100 a year for us to rent 9 N64 games and a couple Genesis games, and granted some NES and Super NES games.
Exactly. Let's be fair here.
Yeah, but realistically, Nintendo's online service is very shitty, and it's no better than when it was free. So you are realistically, they just put the paywall up of like, yeah, you now need this for online play, but also this is how we're doing our Netflix Nintendo Netflix, where you can rent access to these games. But my whole thing is like, if you're just like, yeah, I don't really want to sign up for this service, but I really love the Ocarina of Time, so can I just buy that? Can I pay you for that? And they're like, no, sign up. And it's like, okay, fine, $100, here you go for the year for me and my family to play Mario Kart 64 and Ocarina of Time. And it's like, okay, pay us again next year or you can't play these anymore.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, well, like what if I just want to move through these games casually? Like now I got to feel like I need to knock it out, and it's like, I hate the idea of the only way you can access a given thing is by monthly or annually paying
for it,
a service. Because I think that even if the option to buy the games was there and hyper expensive, that would be a step above not giving people the option at all. Because I think the person who says, look, Ocarina of Time and 60 frames a second, like take all my money, like I'll pay $100 for that if you want. Like for that person to not have the option to do that, like to just be like, no, you're renting this from us and you have to pay us every year for it. I just think that sucks. And it's more examples of why, like there's this meme of this dude kind of like standing in front of like these weird sort of cheap Photoshop things. And it says, you can always pirate Nintendo products. It's always morally correct. Nintendo, this is how that memes like that happen, because you put up these barriers for people to get to the games that a lot of people will just say, yeah, you know what? Okay, fuck you, Nintendo. I'll just play your games on emulators.
And they work pretty well. Like a lot of Nintendo emulators do work pretty well, because I feel like people have the passion to, unfortunately, just fuck over Nintendo. Like they just want to do it to play the games that they loved, right? comparing.
And I mean, like, I don't think that that's necessarily a good thing. Like,
No,
I'm
of
not
course
going to
not.
sit here and
Like-
be like, yeah, go Pirates the way like Kotaku was doing the other day. But
No,
I
but
think
we
that
should
the
be promoting like, hey, you guys made good games. We want to help you out. Like, we want to
Yeah.
pay for what we want to play, but you're stopping us from doing that.
Well, Gabe Newell of Valve once said of piracy of PC games, but it kind of ties into the same thing. Piracy is not a piracy is not a pricing problem, it's a service problem. So most people that are pirating games aren't doing it because the games are too expensive and they just want them for free. I mean, of course, there are
those
obviously going to be those people, but those people are going to be there. You're not going to make those people happy no matter what you do. They're going to find ways to do what they do. You're not losing a sale from them because they would just...
Yeah, and there's such a small percentage. Like, clearly video games have been booming for the last 20 years, not losing money, and they've been easier and easier to pirate in that time, right?
Yeah, but at the same time, when you have services like Steam, that the whole deal, like the culture of the Steam sale is just like all these games that I might not ever get to, but they look interesting enough that while they're on sale right now for $3, I might as well buy it.
Yeah.
Like I can't tell you probably how many copies of games have been sold on Steam, even to me, that just like the reason I bought it was because, oh, that's a very reasonable price for that game that I might decide to play at some point. And when you make the games that available, people have no problem giving out money. Now, I'm not saying that Nintendo should be releasing 60 frames a second Ocarina of Time just on anything and for no money, like for $3. But I think that if you charge $20 for a 60 FPS version of Ocarina of Time that didn't have too much done to it other than just it runs better, I think a lot of people would pay that. Like, they just sold Skyward Sword for $60, and that was a Wii game.
With the idea that you get to keep it, right? Like, as long as your Nintendo Switch works, you can play this game.
Exactly.
That's it.
Yeah, and I have my issues with charging full price for a Wii game. Like, that's just been touched up a little with the better frame rate. But I do still think that that's better than if they're like, okay, good news. For $5 a month, you can play Skyward Sword. Like, I'd be like, okay, well, what about when we finish the game? Like, oh, you cancel your subscription, but then you also can't play Mario Kart online.
Yeah.
It's like, and like, what are you selling us here then? Like,
well, like, and just to compare, so PS Now, which has some like more recent games than Nintendo and N64 games, runs at about $80 a year. And we already talked about the Ultimate Game Pass runs you around $180 a year, but it also comes with like new AAA released games.
Yeah. And so it becomes very easy to justify Game Pass if you get if 3 games that you would have paid full price for, you just play on Game Pass instead, it's already paid for itself and every other game's a bonus.
Exactly, right?
And again, the option is there that if you're like, man, I just want to own the campaign of Halo Infinite, I don't want to have to worry about whether or not my Game Pass is still valid.
You can still buy it.
Yeah. Like, or play it on Game Pass for a couple months, and then if you see it on sale, it's like, okay, buy to own.
Yeah,
like
but
that's
Nintendo does not give you that option to buy to own ever.
Yeah, and they pretty much never have things on sales. Well, at least not with these games. You used to be able to buy to own Nintendo games. In fact, most of the games that are on that list, you can still buy on a Wii or a Wii U right now.
Yeah.
You just can't buy them on Switch, and 90% of the Nintendo players in existence right now are playing on Switch. Probably more than 90%.
And I feel like those generations of games are perfect for the Switch. Like, take them anywhere you want. Like, hey, just like pop in a few races of like Mario Kart and stuff like that. Like nostalgia, or like side scrollers, like even Ocarina of Time. Like, it's not like a massive game where like you need a full on monitor and a TV screen and a full on joystick to play it. Like, you can just have fun with it. But you know, Nintendo doesn't want you to have fun.
Well, not always. And I guess that can bring us into our last topic.
Yeah. So released this week, we did have Metroid Dread, which was released on the Switch, got an 89 on Metacritic, developed by Mercury Steam and Nintendo, obviously, published by Nintendo. And it's a 2D adventure game that's Samus's first continuous mission since Metroid Fusion, which was 19 years ago. brings you back no, so you don't play on the same planet in Metroid Fusion. This is a new
No,
planet.
different planet. Basically, there's a distress signal that's called out saying that there's an infestation of the X parasite, which was the threat that was in Metroid Fusion that you thought, or at least Samus thought, she destroyed all of on the biological science lab. I think there's like a weird kind of, seems like it was an odd Japanese translation for the place in Metroid Fusion, but you destroy this research facility that this X parasite is on, and you think that they're all gone, but apparently there's a report that one is on this new planet ZBR, and you go down there in it to basically find out what would happen with the Emmy robots, which are those kind of robots from the trailer that look like they're hunting Samus. And essentially they were sent there to wipe out the X-parasites that were there, but the plot thickens, I'll say. I don't really want to spoil too much because I think we'll talk about our impressions, but I don't want to... This is one of the few Metroid games where you actually can get legit spoiled on it, because there are things which happen in it that are like, oh man, that was a twist. M. Night Shyamalan wrote this one.
So I got up to the first Corpius boss. You've cleared the game.
Yeah, I've beaten the game twice.
Unreal. But I'm at the Corpius boss right now. It's obviously a fun game. Like, graphics are amazing. The gameplay is amazing. The only thing is, though, I really wish, like, so when you start the game, obviously, like every game in the world, you start with
no powers.
No powers. But I feel like Destiny 2 did this really well. You do the first mission with all your powers, and then you lose them. So like you actually feel the gravity of what you've just lost, and like you really want to get all your powers back. And I thought that this would have been a perfect game for that. Like, have like a mission where you have all your powers and get to a certain area and then have them all taken away from you. But
yeah, they just kind of handled that in a cinematic.
And I was like, okay. Exactly. Like, if you're gonna take all my powers away anyways, like watch me get my powers taken away. At least let me play with them first, right? But
yeah.
But besides that, getting them all back is still pretty cool. Like it's still, like everything you do is fun.
That's kind of the hook with the Metroid games, that it's all about just there's roadblocks in your way that can be cleared by either an ability like a weapon that essentially just functions as a key. Like there are doors that have like the red bubble on them that you just have to use your missile to unlock. And then there's others that it's like, oh, okay, there's this big gap of lava that, oh, I see those little blue glowing lights, and maybe I can find a device that'll let me cross these. And then you get the grapple beam and it's like, okay, I can swing across those. The pace at which the abilities are earned in this game, basically the game design, as far as like the way the game feels, being able to just free aim feels so good. And the slide, I think, is an incredible addition, because I was actually playing through Samus Returns, which is Mercury Steam's previous Metroid game, for a second time also, because I'm still writing my big script on Metroid, and I didn't really write too much on Samus Returns after I finished it. So as I was writing it, I was just like, oh, I feel like I'm kind of fuzzy on these details. So I fired up another run. Every single time I am at a place where I need to run and then go underneath a low wall, I always just hit the left trigger because I'm trying to slide. And I'm like, oh crap, you can't slide in this game. That sucks. How did I ever play a Metroid game without being able to slide?
Like, it's so, and it's so key too. Like, obviously once you start playing the game, you'll realize why sliding is important, especially in the first couple levels.
Especially in the boss fights.
And speaking of the Git Good Scrub podcast, this game is difficult, but it's not impossible. And
no, not even close.
And like I saw like early reviews like, oh, why does it have to be so hard? I'm like, because it's a challenge. Like, if it was easy, it wouldn't be that much fun. Like,
these people would have been eaten alive by the original Metroid game. Like, this game isn't nearly as difficult as Metroid 1, 2, or 3. It's harder than 4. Like, it is a much harder game than Metroid Fusion by a vast like chasm. Like, Metroid Fusion is arguably an easy game until the last boss fight that's actually pretty tough. And Metroid Dread is very, very challenging at all points. However, as much as like, I mean, it's always a meme to say like this is the Dark Souls of Metroid games. It's not the Dark Souls of Metroid games, but the bosses are designed in a way that is similar to the way the FromSoft bosses are designed. In that, all the bosses in the game though have very predictable patterns that when you learn what those patterns are, you can start to see, okay, here's how I avoid this attack. Okay, that attack just killed me, and it kills me every time I try. I must be doing something wrong. What if instead of trying to jump out of the way of that attack, I try to slide underneath it? Or if I can't seem to dodge these projectiles in any way, like they seem like they're too big for me to jump around or slide around, try shooting them. Because you know what happens when you shoot some of the projectiles that bosses fire? They give you missiles and health. Do you have any idea how much of a game changer it is when you realize that the thing that was killing you can heal you if you just fire a missile at it instead of trying to jump out of the way? Like, every single one of the boss fights is engineered in that way. The hardest boss fights in the game are the last two. And the final boss, I should probably not show any footage of this, so I won't. Or look away. Everyone, go to audio podcast in case I show. The second phase of the final boss fight gives you no means to heal. And then the third phase, you can start healing again. So it's really like the last boss, you got to kind of ace that first phase, really gut it out for the second phase, and just do enough damage to him fast enough that you don't die. And then by the time the third phase starts, he does a couple of the attacks that you can counter and get some health and missiles back. And I didn't find any boss fight in that game to be overly challenging, but they all kept me on my toes, and they all made me really read the patterns and think. And I mean, honestly, like, as much as people often, even based on our previous segment, there are probably people in this audience right now who are like, this guy just hates Nintendo. Everything Nintendo does, he thinks is bad. Metroid Dread is the best game I've played this year. Yeah. It might be the best game I've played in the last 5 years, though Sekiro was in the last 5 years, and Doom Eternal. So that's a bit of a different conversation, but it's one of the best games I've played in the last little bit. It's really, really good. And I'll say it, I know this might really be a hot take, I think it's the best 2D Metroid game. Like 2D perspective wise. I mean, it's obviously made with polygons, not 2D sprites. And I'll explain why.
You're not moving forward and backwards. Like you're just moving side to side.
Exactly. Yeah, except for like it does the little angle shift when you get the power cannon, the Omega cannon. Yeah. But which again, that you'll find that out if you play the game. But it's not. You're always moving on a 2D plane. So that's kind of what I mean by it. And it's one of the numbered Metroid games too. So there's Metroid, Metroid 2, The Return of Samus, or Samus Returns, the 3DS remake. Super Metroid, which is Metroid 3, Metroid Fusion, which is Metroid 4, and Metroid Dread. So of those 5 games, Dread is the best one. And I can say that for sure because I've played all of them in the last 2 months. A couple of them I've played twice.
So where does Metroid Prime fit in?
Prime is between Metroid 1 and 2, and it's a whole side story called the Phazon arc.
Got it.
So it's kind of has its own thing. I haven't finished Prime yet. I haven't finished the Prime series yet. I'm still playing Metroid Prime 3. Metroid Prime 1, though, is, again, that one, like I said, rocketed up there to my favorite games of all time when I got to play with the keyboard and mouse, and I haven't changed my opinion on that. But I'll tell you this, though, Dread has made me now, for the second time in a couple months, debate whether or not 2D Metroid's better than 3D Metroid. Because I'm just like, oh, man. Prime with a good control scheme kind of jumped ahead of all the other 2D Metroids for me, but then I played Dread and I'm like, oh man, this is good. And I'll break down why, because I think it's important, because I guarantee you there's people out there that are like, oh, this guy's obviously never played Super Metroid. Yes, I have, and it was very recently. So Metroid 1, probably the most revolutionary game in a lot of ways, because it was very, very non-linear. You can tackle the areas and bosses, grab items in a lot of different ways, and it's very flexible. But at the same time, there's no mini-map. There's not really a very good save system, so it's not very pleasant to play the original Metroid these days. It's a hard one to recommend. Metroid 2, significantly better than the original Metroid in a lot of ways. In fact, Metroid 2, I think, has more in common with Metroid, Super Metroid, than it does with the first one, but it's black and white, and it's on a Game Boy, so it can be a little rough to look at. Now, Mercury Steam, the people who made Dread, remade it, but I actually think the better way to experience Metroid 2 is AM2R, which is a fan remake that kind of plays a bit more like Zero Mission. Zero Mission is the remake of 1. That was official. Super Metroid really kind of solidifies what the Metroid kind of formula is, and that it added the minimap, it added a map screen in general. It was a lot more sophisticated to navigate. It linked together in a lot of really cool ways, but there were still a lot of very obtuse areas where it's like the only way I'm going to find out how to progress is by having a game guide or just randomly bombing walls until something happens to open up. Whereas I think that in Metroid Dread, there's some of that to the point that it's not really holding your hand, but there's not a lot of it. There's enough that I did not need to use a guide for my first run through Dread. I felt like I needed to really think and explore, though. Whereas Fusion, the problem with Fusion, the reason why I say it's probably one of the easiest ones in the series, is there's basically no thinking involved in Fusion. It makes it so that Fusion's pretty approachable in that sense, because basically you have this computer AI thing called that Samus calls Adam, who's actually a pretty important character in the series, and he's also in Dread. He's also kind of pointing you around. He just gives you less specific places to go. But in Fusion, he's like, go to this area, you're looking for this spot, you'll have to find out where the door is, but like basically you know exactly where you're going at all points in Fusion. And that starts to feel a bit like, okay, this was the Metroid game that was made for beginners, because it's, instead of giving you the huge big game to explore, it's like little tiny area and you know where you're supposed to go within that area, you know? So it's a little bit more segmented. But Dread kind of is the best mix of Super Metroid's mystery and exploration with all the cool gameplay things that Mercury Steam added in Samus Returns, the remake of Metroid 2, but with a much better frame rate and much tighter mechanics. So, and I think that the boss fights are by far the best in the series. And I mean, I named our podcast Get Good Scrub. I enjoy challenging boss fights. So for me, I don't think there's one better than Dread. Now, I've as I was kind of saying, I played Metroid Dread twice. I played it once on Nintendo Switch, and actually I could... So because I gave X-Ray Girl my normal Nintendo Switch, I played it on this Switch OLED, which is a lovely little device. The screen actually is quite nice for it. Though it looks like the last thing I was playing was Quake, because I'm MarcTheCyborg and I love Quake. But anyways, I did play it in full on Nintendo Switch once, but I played the game twice. So where I'm going with this is the other time I played it, it was on the Gouging emulator in 4K with an Xbox Elite controller, and oh boy, that was good. Now, there's an ethical consideration that I should bring up. Playing on an emulator, maybe not the most legal thing in the world to do. Definitely a bit of a gray area when it's a brand new game, and especially when it's a series like Metroid that is notoriously poor selling relative to all the other games from the company. So I will say this unequivocally. You have my you'll see my full review once I get my Metroid video done. I think you should buy Metroid Dread if you have any interest at all in Metroid games. I think you should buy a copy on Nintendo Switch, even if you don't own a Nintendo Switch and are planning to just buy the game, dump the ROM to an emulator with, I guess, a friend's hacked Nintendo Switch and play it that way. Because, man, the game's incredible and it deserves the sale. However, to square out my own karma, I not only bought a digital copy of the game that I was playing on the Switch right there, I got both of the Amiibos. Now, what these do, as Fonz was going to ask me.
What do Amiibos do? Because it's like, so it's Amiibos, actually in the game, too.
Amiibos have a little NFC chip right here, like the same thing you have in your credit card. And once you activate the Amiibo option in game, so if you press the select button, or whatever select is called on Switch, the button that's on the left-hand side of your controller, you can select the Amiibo option, and if you scan Samus, it gives you an extra energy tank. So it basically gives you like a whole extra health bar. And if you scan the Emmy, it gives you 10 extra missiles. And
That's
then I
it?
think after, yeah. So it's not a big gameplay perk, but it's something.
It helps.
Makes the game
Yeah.
slightly easier. So not that I necessarily recommend buying Amiibos. I do recommend supporting Metroid Dread though. And
Sounds like
if you
pay
want
to
to
win
see,
though.
if you I mean, yeah, but 1 energy tank and 10 missiles isn't like it's not gonna be that big a deal. Although I mean, there are definitely times where 1 energy tank would have been the difference between life and death. However, those didn't show up in the mail until after I finished it on Switch. I have since scanned them in to my end game playthrough because I'm hoping to just when I'm on the go to 100% the game. But I also, you want to see how hard I went to like Mooby Bob level of consumerism with this one? I also got the collector's edition. I did not play the cart that is in this box. I've not even opened this yet.
Jesus.
But this is like when some people are like, oh yeah, you PC gamers, you just don't want to pay for games. That's why you use emulators. Nay.
No.
Nay, I say. Not on this one, at least.
No one could ever accuse you of that. But, like I said, like it's clearly a great game. Like Nintendo does have great products. It's just their service we have problems with.
Yeah. I honestly think like make me CEO of Nintendo for like 6 months. Give me 6 months. I will quadruple their profits and make everybody happier. Except for the like Nintendo stands who are like, oh, it's so stupid that these Nintendo games are on other systems now. Like they should be Nintendo exclusive. I'll be like, okay, yeah, buy Metroid Prime on your Switch right now. No, can't do that. Oh, okay. So shut up. But but anyways, no, like I think that Metroid Dread is the thing that I've been joking about is this is a game that the Nintendo bump, like the Nintendo inflation to review scores, where it's like, okay, if a game's an 8, critics are going to give it a 10 if it's a Nintendo game. And if a game's a 6, critics are going to give it at least a 7, probably an 8 if it's a Nintendo game. The example that I always cite that I was actually writing this in my Metroid script, so I might go over this again on my video, is Mario Odyssey is the one I always bring up. Because that is a game that I played in full. I played all of Mario Odyssey. I thought it was okay. I thought it was easily a great game. You could say it's an 8 out of 10. It's a game, though, that got 10 out of 10s from, like, everybody. And I'm just like, you can't convince me in any reality that if that game was Banjo-Kazooie Odyssey or Bubsy the Bobcat Odyssey or Crash Bandicoot Odyssey, and it played exactly the same. No difference in gameplay, no difference in game design. It just didn't have the Mario things, and it had a different main character. There's no chance that game would have been 10 out of 10s from any outlet. Like, there's a strong element of like, oh, this game is really solid. And man, it's Mario. Oh, look, he said, woohoo, amazing. Oh man, 10 out of 10. Like, I honestly think that's where these people are operating. Because I played this game, I was like, I don't see it. I don't see the 10. I see a good 3D platformer, but nothing about this game is really spectacular. Like, it's an exploration platformer. That's it. It's fine. It's not bad. I don't understand how it's a 10 out of 10. Yeah. Metroid, though, like you were saying, its Metacritic was like, what, 89?
89, yeah.
This game is underrated. Okay, it's really fucking good. And I'm not, clearly not a Nintendo fanboy. I might be a Metroid fanboy now because I've been really liking the Metroid games I've been playing. But again, even after this month, the only Metroid games that I have not started a single Metroid game. I've started at least every one, and the only ones right now that I haven't finished are Metroid Prime 3 and Other M. That's it. I've played all the rest of them, including the spin-offs. So, like, I played Metroid Prime Pinball, Metroid Prime Hunters on the DS, Federation Force on 3DS.
Jesus.
None of those are particularly fantastic, but I've played them. And some of them are better than others. Metroid Dread, I think, is the best of the 2D ones, though. And I think it is absolutely worth your money. And, I mean, if you've got the means to do it, I think you should emulate it on PC and run it in 4K because it looks insane. And I wish Nintendo would give you a 100% legal option to do that. However, I think that even if you're going to do that, if you're a person who doesn't own a Switch and you're like, oh, I can play this on PC, I should just play it on PC, then go to Best Buy or hop on Amazon, buy a physical copy of the game, and I don't know, talk to some friends, and if anyone you know really didn't think they want to play it, just give it to them for Christmas or something, or hang on to it and like give Nintendo the sale, because I think that they deserve to be rewarded when they do good things, and I think that Mercury Steam and Nintendo knocked it out of the park with this one. And yeah, game of the year for me so far.
So far, well,
Well, I
we'll
mean,
see.
we still gotta
We'll
play
s-
Halo. Like,
Yeah, and we'll see
Which-
what Guardians of the Galaxy has to say about that. Comes out next week. But I think that's it for today. You have anything else to add?
no, buy Metroid Dread and that's all.
Yeah, and hopefully Nintendo's listening at this one. It's not Be Good.
It's Get Good, scrubs.